And so I talked to the writers, and the writers and I both agreed that that would be the obvious choice. So what you see with The Good Wife is a woman who is strong, who's capable on any given day of maybe having a little edge to her, or being a little bitchy, or being tough. But that is not her main quality. In fact, you will see her in the show being somewhat of a, of a mentor to Alicia, and being a woman who has a personal life, who has a sophisticated sensibility, and is not an angry woman. There are edges there because she's in power, but she's not a stereotype of an angry older woman. And in that regard, I think The Good Wife is a huge contribution in terms of moving the media forward. Because women aren't portrayed enough that way, right?
Well, I would love to talk, this is a favorite topic of mine. I would love to talk more about the Diane role and how it's evolved also over the seasons, but you know, it's an interesting time right now. There's a lot of resurgence in the talk about feminism, and then, you know, Facebook's Sheryl Sandberg just did this book, you know, that really speaks to women kind of like Diane, or, you know, in career positions of power. So I'd love to hear more about how you feel about, you know, portraying a role that is so resonant, so relevant today, and being part of that conversation, you know, as it's grown over the last few years on the show. You know, do people come to you, fans, and want to talk about it? They want to talk about, you know, all the stuff that your character brings up.
Well, I think our writers, Robert and Michelle King, they hear a lot of that from feedback and press, and they get asked questions, and I think they rightfully say, look, we're not writing a feminist show. We're not writing doctrine here. We're not making, you know, we're not saying this is how it should be in the culture. We're trying to write a good show, a really great show with complex characters. And when you write truthfully about women in the workplace, those questions will come up. How, in fact, do you rise to the top and become the head of a law firm without somehow making some big sacrifices along the way? And, you know, in Diane, we see a woman who she did not marry. Does that mean she's unhappy? No. I like that. I like that she doesn't go home at night and drink herself into a stupor. You know, you even see her, she's had a couple of men who are love interests, and they're rather interesting men too. They're men you wouldn't expect her, you know, they're not metrosexuals. They're more like cowboy types. They're like guys. And but you see Alicia, you know, you see a woman who's tired and comes home to her kids, and if it truthfully reflects culture, and you write a show that really shows women in a complicated work environment, and they are complex human beings, then all of those issues are going to come up. But I don't think we're trying to write about the feminist experience per se. We do it because we're writing about the world that's out there. And I think the great thing about the show is I don't think television or film has written nearly enough for women of any age, excuse me. I mean, yes, they write for 20-year-olds who are sexy, and they write for sexy women, but to write about women, there are so many women in the world now who are running corporations, who are Secretary of State, who are heads of nations, who, you know, are at this festival. Their lives and their sensibilities are not reflected in media. You're not seeing their stories. And so The Good Wife, I think, has opened a door, and if its success will lead to more shows, more producers or movie and TV producers saying, hey, actually there's an audience for this sort of thing. Let's have shows that show women in this interesting way. Then that's really a fantastic thing.
Well, we have actually a couple of clips from The Good Wife, and I want to talk about them each a little bit separately. And I'm going to start with one that is a clip featuring Diane and Alicia, and I think it's very interesting to see not just women in the workplace, but women as they relate to other women in the workplace, and generational differences, and passing on wisdoms, and whether they are relevant and or not. So let's go ahead and roll the Alicia clip, if we could, and then we'll talk about it.
What did he want? Mr. Canning, it was a personal matter, nothing important.
Well, I'm here on a professional one. Your absence from the festivities is sending quite a message to the partnership.
What message would that be?
That you're not vested in our little enterprise. You're pouting. It's unbecoming.
No, I'm working.
You know why I was made partner? Jonas Stern was sued for sexual harassment, and he needed to show that he had a female partner. That's all. When the door that you have been knocking at finally swings open, you don't ask why. You run through. That is the simple fact. No one is here to make it comfortable for you. No one is here to appreciate your moping. So this is my advice to you. Take a minute for yourself, put on your best gracious voice, find a way to wear a smile, and then come into the conference room ready to thank the equity partners for giving you this opportunity. Because what is given can quickly be taken away.
So as a viewer, I've watched that a few times. I continue actually to be a little conflicted because I really do see both points of view there, and I'm curious, Christine, who you relate to the most in that scenario, and if you're as conflicted as I feel, because I sort of feel like, well, I get where Alicia's coming from. I really get where
I
Diane is
certainly get where she's coming from, and I think Diane goes in there knowing that she has a grievance, a legitimate grievance, and I think what Diane is saying is this is actually how the world works. So let's not be sentimental about it, and let's get over it, and I'm doing you a big favor by just telling you this is how I got in the door. You know, it wasn't the way I wanted to get in the door. It was because some guy, you know, screwed up, and then I saw the door open, and I rushed in. And that is actually how things more often than not work. We would like to get there in a certain trajectory, in a certain dignified way, but what I like about it is that even though she's being tough, the speech as written I don't think is mean. There's a real edge there, but it's just, she's saying, look, this is how it is, and just get in the room and shake hands and be gracious. You've just been given a huge opportunity. Don't analyze it, just go.
I like it. Have you had an experience, you know, yourself? You said, you know, this is kind of how things work, you know, where you felt, well, this isn't how I thought I was going to get here, but I'm going here anyway.
That's interesting. You know, I think show business is actually such a difficult profession, and you suffer so many, just the whole process of getting a job and knowing you're competing with other people, and is it going to work, isn't it going to work? I'll tell you something funny. I think I can share this, but when I did, I was up for this job that would have been my first sitcom, and my agents, my manager was saying, you've really got to do this. It was the Chuck Lorre thing. And I was very reluctant, but it was clearly like a wonderfully written role, and it was Sybil Shepherd, and it looked like it was really a hot property. And they wanted me to read for the network. And I just was like very grumpy about having to read from the network. I said, well, if they really want me, why do I have to read for the network? And nobody was really telling me what that was, but they said, you just have to do that. You just have to do that. Years later, I found out that the man who was then the head of the network, his name show is irrelevant, he's long gone, but he actually said, he didn't want me to do that show. He said, nobody's interested in seeing Christine Baranski. And that's why I had to read for the network. And then I did get the job. Maybe my audition convinced him, or the other producers wanted me badly. But anyway, 13 weeks, I was 13 weeks on the air in that show and won an Emmy, and it changed my career. And clearly, people were liking what I did. But it was like, I will always have that sense that, gee, you know, actually, the guy in charge didn't even want me. And it so could have gone the other way. That was a show that changed the course of my career because of that. For one thing, I started finally making money. I had a level of visibility. People knew who I was. I was starting to get movie roles because of it. I'm probably sitting here today still working for CBS because of that show. Because a year later, the man who's now my boss took over the network, Leslie Moonves, and he's still the head of the network, and I have a very happy relaip. But you know,
And
you
they
never
offered you the
know.
Good Wife role.
Huh?
You
And he
didn't have
offered
to
me-
read.
yeah, and the Good Wife came along, but you never know where or how your success is going to come. And I wouldn't be grumpy about that story, but when I think how close I came to that not happening, and maybe my life would have been very different. So there you go.
Do you have any advice for aspiring actors or actresses who would love to emulate, you know, the longevity, the consistency, the diversity, and versatility of your career, or just, you know, be a working, you know, actor? What kind of advice would you give to someone today?
Yeah, you know, I do get asked that all the time, and I get asked by young actors, and it troubles me that I can't be more. I don't know. The business has changed very, very much. It's a different way of dealing with, there are different constructs. When I was a young actress, you could leave acting school and I think, you know, do lots of plays in the way that I did, and then get noticed, and then maybe make the jump to television, and then that would open other doors. And I had like a trajectory that just kind of kept going up and up and up, and I'm not saying I ever, I was never Julia Roberts. It's not like I made it to some movie stardom, but I made it to a very, very lovely level in my career where, you know, I've been working for a long time. I think the business has changed. I think it's harder to say to young actors, no, when you leave school, do what I did, which was pack your bags and go to regional theaters all over the country and learn your craft. Because young actors are afraid that they're going to miss the boat, that their youth is a commodity. And I try to tell young actors, look, try to have faith in time. Try to have faith in the fact that what makes you an interesting actor is being an interesting human being, and knowing how, having a set of skills that will last you a whole career. That takes time to develop. I really don't think there are shortcuts in terms of learning to be a good actor. And I just laid the groundwork very slowly and steadily in my career. And I actually wasn't, first of all, I didn't dream of being a movie star. And I didn't even think about being on television. And now I think young actors feel a great pressure to be seen and be visible as fast as possible because it will give them leverage.